Good day, everyone. Today we'll be resuming our lessons on the various saints that have been immortalized by the Adventurers Guild and various regions. If you haven't already, I recommend listening in on my earlier lectures on this topic first, as I go into greater detail about their history and origins. But regardless, these stories ultimately serve to remind us that not everyone needs to be a god-slaying champion to leave an impression on those around them. Let the tales of these illustrious men and women serve as a spark that ignites the fires of curiosity, passion, and patience within those that hear them. Let us begin. The Munificence of Saint Adama. There was once a Lalafell known by the name Adama Lendama. He was a merchant. In fact, he was a very successful merchant and had gained a generous sum of wealth with his many dealings. At first glance, he would appear to be a miserly man, never sparing so much as a crooked coin for those who begged and pleaded on the streets. But despite this, those who had traded with him would tell you about a completely different man. While not a charitable soul, he was an honest one. Whenever Adama went to the market to buy something, he would never haggle about the price, or ever expect special treatment and discounts. No, he was a man who would only buy things as they were offered, and he would only purchase items that piqued his particular curiosity that day. It didn't matter if said object was an expensive painting from a renowned artist or tiny seashells being sold by a little girl. If Adama saw value in these things, he would buy them at price. Because of his behavior, Adama gained a reputation as a Lalafell of great taste, and was often seen with a basket full of all sorts of things any time he went to the market. His pragmatism gained him such a reputation that traders from all over the land would sell at this market just to get his attention. As the market grew, so did trade, and as trade expanded, the lives of the people improved. Never did Adama Lendama spend more or less than what he saw as truly worth the item's price. Because of his influence, local trade would flourish and the people rejoiced. For his actions, Adama was named the Saint of Munificence and earned the blessings of Naldthal, the traders. The Candor of Saint Andelem. Our next story takes us to an apple orchard. Normally, this would be a quiet place, yet the trees and their bountiful fruit were threatened to be stained with blood as conflict had arose. Here stood two parties. On one side were the farmers and peasants who had felt enough was enough and grew tired of the leadership of the land. On the other side was the lord that they so despised, and he was flanked by all manner of soldiers and sellswords to keep him safe. Both sides looked eager for a fight, and it seemed violence was about to erupt. But the sound of an approaching knight had caused the shouting to stop. The knight removed his helmet and walked between the two groups, planting himself in the middle of the feud. His presence only aggravated the soldiers at the lord's side. They began to shout and scream, telling the old knight that if he did not move, they'd cut him down alongside the peasants. But when everyone looked at the lord, his face had gone pale, and his words failed him as they stumbled out of his mouth in a panic. No one else had realized who this was, but the lord had. He immediately fell to his knees and bowed before the man he recognized as Archbishop Andelem IV. Even without the golden crown on his head, the lord knew Andelem's face well. Then the knight spoke, and the archbishop said that he came here because he had heard how upset the farmers were at being mistreated. But instead of arriving as a monarch, he chose to stand here as a man. Andelem would then mediate between the lord and the farmers, ending the conflict without bloodshed before leaving the orchard. For his impartial and unbiased leadership, Andelem was named the Saint of Candor. And for proving that words can be as efficient as any blade, Halone herself smiled upon him, granting the archbishop her eternal blessing. The Benevolence of Saint Moshiani. In a far-off town, there was a time when alchemists were given a monopoly over medicinal trade thanks to the many donations they gave to the royal treasury. However, this proved to be a tremendous mistake, as greed set in all too quickly. The price of common medicine and herbs began to soar, and soon the common folk could no longer afford even basic salves and potions. An Elzen woman named Moshiani saw this and sprang into action. Using techniques that she inherited from her grandmother, she began to harvest medicinal herbs and flowers that grew on the outskirts of town. However, since the alchemists were given a monopoly, she couldn't simply sell her medicine. But Moshiani was clever. She wove everything she collected into beautiful bouquets and wreaths, making it look like she was carrying nothing more than flowers. Because of her, the poor were able to get the medicine they needed despite the greed that was allowed to damage their lives. For her care, Moshiani was named the Saint of Benevolence and earned the blessings of Menfina for sharing the bounty of the land with those who needed it most. The Concord of St. Jerome. This tale takes us onto the road as we follow the life of a well-known and beloved hero named Jerome. This was a man who traveled all over, solving problems and slaying foul monsters like something out of a fairy tale. In fact, he rescued more than a few fair maidens in his time, alongside some thankful gentlemen as well. But Jerome wouldn't be remembered just for his heroism as a fighter. His acclaim was born from the company he kept. He wasn't the type of hero to have a powerful mage or cunning rogue at his side. In truth, his comrades were nothing more than common folk. Jerome was the only one who knew how to fight, yet he was always in good spirits because of his colleagues. A Makote he knew would fish while he was off adventuring, while a Lalafell would cook delicious meals while they were traveling on the road, and even more friendly faces filled his life. In between jobs, Jerome would laugh and smile alongside his friends as he himself would state that the brotherhood he forged with these people was more precious than any treasure or reward. Even though he usually fought alone, Jerome was always in high spirits because of his friends, and would accomplish even more deeds of heroism because of it. Celebrated for the harmony his band of brothers had created, Jerome was named the Saint of Concord. And even Oshan was moved by this traveling hero, earning the Wanderer's blessing. The sincerity of Saint Warbar. Time tells of a Rogadin that also carried the name of Truthful Bear. This was in fact Warbar, and he was a pioneer of great esteem and respect. He traveled the land, and no matter who he met, he would greet them with good tidings and cheer. It didn't matter who you were or where you came from, Warbar gave everyone a chance. He judged people based on their actions, never their origins, and it was this all-embracing mentality that forged a powerful sense of community on his frontier settlement. This jolly approach to camaraderie would even extend to the nearby beast tribes. Warbar never let social differences and language barriers get the best of him, as he would build strong relationships with the beast tribes that he encountered. He learned their ways and earned their respect, turning what might have been hostile enemies into thankful allies. Because of the cooperation he inspired, many people would survive things like famine and other such troubles without worry. Upon his death, people from all walks of life would mourn his passing. Rich and poor, man and beast, everyone wept for their collective friend. Yet his tale would inspire them all, encouraging them to follow his example and give everyone the chance that he gave them. Warbar was thusly named the Saint of Sincerity, and for his ability to break down the barriers that divided people, he was given the blessings of Rhalgr. The Unity of Saint Boldenoff. Stories apprise us of a mercenary band and their respected leader, a gentleman named Boldenoff. There was a time when Boldenoff and his company had faced a tragic defeat, fleeing into a nearby village. However, despite being visibly poor and ramshackled, the village and its people welcomed the mercenaries with open arms. They helped to feed and mend Boldenoff's band, and eventually, the enemy had come to the village in search of these mercenaries. The villagers hid them, saving their lives as the foe moved on, assuming Boldenoff was somewhere else. He and his mercenaries would leave the village, thanking the generous people for their boon. 7 years would pass, and a terrible drought would suddenly strike the land, and the same poor village faced starvation. Without warning, Boldenoff and his mercenaries suddenly appeared, and with their combined strength, they dug down deep to create a bountiful new well for the village to drink from. Yet Boldenoff was not satisfied, feeling his debt had not yet been paid. Brigands and thieves learned of the new well this village had and wanted to take it for themselves. But Boldenoff was resolute, and his men surrounded the village, protecting them and killing any bandits that got too close. Even as the mercenaries realized they were outnumbered in taking casualties, none of Boldenoff's men broke the line. They all stood firm, no matter the odds. For inspiring people to stand together no matter the hardship, Boldenoff was named the Saint of Unity, earning the respect and blessings of Nalthal. The Promptitude of Saint Rita. Rita was a Makote huntress with many siblings, but tragedy struck one day as one of her younger sisters had been kidnapped by slave traders. Rita would ride on the back of an antelope alongside two of her older sisters, and the three of them raced to save their younger sibling. Eventually, they came upon their quarry. A ship was beached on the coast, loading its living cargo. However, as they approached, the cliff changed from a gentle slope to a sudden and steep drop at the beach. The antelopes buckled and hesitated, and so did Rita's older sisters. They looked around, failing to see a quick and safe way down the cliff. But Rita didn't hesitate. With a passionate war cry, she gave her mount the courage to scale the cliffside and land on the beach, letting the momentum carry her toward their target. The slavers were shocked and unprepared for such a sudden attack. Thus, they were soundly defeated. Rita rode with pride that day, as she would return home with her younger sister. For her bravery in the face of doubt, Rita was named the Saint of Promptitude and was given the blessings of Althik for respecting the value of time. But that will be enough stories from me for now. I hope you learned something more about the various saints that have come to be time-honored and why they're so respected. As always, I'll be sure to cover even more of them later down the line. All I ask is for some time. But until that day comes, I hope you all live as saints do. And stay safe, my friends. Thank you all for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe and share this with your fellow adventurers? With your help, I'll try to reach out even further and bring even greater stories to you. Although, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my biggest contributors. A grand thank you to Sage Mouse, Sinalf Bagel, Cezanne, and Tyradox, with an additional nod to the scholarships on screen. Links to things like my Twitter and that of my channel artist Caddy can be found in the description. Thank you all for your viewership as well as your support, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Class dismissed.